It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. I have not sat in this chair in a long time. Everything feels off. Everything feels broken. Anthony's camera is super jacked up. This is literally not the same chair as the last time I was here. I think that chair is the one typically I sit in. But we're back in studio. Not in Indianapolis. Not in my home studio. I am here. Anthony's just threw a pane of glass, and I haven't put you on camera yet. There's something we got to figure that out. And the Commanders have traded for Deebo Samuel, so that's cool. That's nice. That'll help the old wide receiving core. And we're going to talk about it throughout the show, including with you, coming up in just a few minutes at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. You can start lining up on the phones now because we are going to dive in to your reaction to the Deebo trade and what it means for the Commanders moving forward. So what I will say about the Deebo trade is I think it's a good idea. This is a player who is a perfect fit for Washington's offense if he has anything left in the tank. And if he doesn't, then the cost of a fifth-round pick is just frankly not that much. And $17 million of cap space in a season where you're not really that worried about your cap space. You have $80+ million. Yes, you have a lot of guys to re-sign. But at the end of the day, there's only so many there's only so much money you're going to be throwing around. You also have a basically $16.5 million hit that you can avoid by cutting or trading John Allen. And if you can somehow get a fifth-round pick, or frankly even a sixth, because again, Washington's picks are all at the end of the round. If you could get a middle or top half sixth-round pick for Deebo or for John Allen, you would basically have traded John Allen for Deebo Samuel into the same exact roster space, still have $80 million to play with, and not lose any draft picks. Yeah, I would say that's probably a good idea. So on the contract side, I would just Over the Cap has written this up because there's been a bunch of stuff floating around, and this is a little bit convoluted, but this is the situation with the contract, and then we'll get into the actual football of it all, since that's probably what most people care about. But I don't know. Some people really like the contract stuff. So Washington, this is from Jason Fitzgerald at Over the Cap. Washington, who is salary cap rich and can afford to take on some contract risk, will pick up Samuel's $17.55 million salary. Samuel technically has an option in his contract that is due in mid-March, but my assumption is the 49ers will either renounce the option or rework his contract prior to the trade to remove it to avoid having to take on the proration from the option as dead money this year. If the option is not utilized, Samuel's cap number for Washington will be $17.55 million. If the option is included, then his cap charge will only be $5.2 million this year, and the remaining $12.344 will be put into void years starting in 2026. Given the Commanders are expected to have over $80 million in cap room, it would make sense just to take the hit now. So, in other words, there are two different paths here. Washington and San Francisco will work together on this, and it probably is beneficial for both to just have all of the potential money reworked into a base guaranteed salary, and instead of this being this option bonus that can be split up and some of it counting next year or even 2 years from now if you want to spread it out with void years in the contract, it is better, and some dead money left in San Francisco. It's better for Washington if San Francisco says that option is not picked up, but it's actually reworked into the base salary for Deebo. And then it counts fully on Washington's in 2025. So San Francisco's still going to have to deal with $31 million in dead money, but that is the cap situation. This stuff is, some of these contracts are pretty simple. Some of these contracts are brutally not simple, and this is one that is kind of complicated, but ultimately $17 million for Deebo Samuel. That's what the reporting has been for Washington. So then that leaves to what he is as a player. If Deebo can stay healthy and not return to 2021 Deebo, because that guy's never coming back, the all-pro 1,400-yard receiver with a couple hundred other yards and some touchdowns on the ground, that dude never came back for San Francisco. He was one of one at his absolute athletic prime before his body had taken the beating that he has put it through in the NFL the last couple of years. But in 2023, he was still a very effective player. Just shy of 1,000 yards, averaged over 6 yards a carry. Big part of a San Francisco offense that had a lot of other really nice pieces. George Kittle still playing well. Christian McCaffrey was insane that year in 2023. He was an MVP candidate. And so if you can get that version of Deebo Samuel, he fits tremendously well in this offense because the things that he does well, they do. These quick screen passes. You want better options than De'Ami Brown and Luke McCaffrey and Olamide Zaccheaus and Austin Eckler running those screens? Great. I present to you Deebo Samuel. You want a guy that can run some quick slants, catch the ball fairly reliably. He's not an amazing hands guy, but he's a legitimate receiver. This isn't a running back. He's a receiver that can play running back, not a running back that's playing receiver. That order is correct when phrased as he is a receiver playing running back, who can play some running back, I should say. But after the catch, he's incredible. Impossible to arm tackle. He's so big. He's so strong. His contact balance is insane. And he also, in terms of the receiver stuff he does well, some of these deep digs where if you can get Terry taking the top off the defense and then run Deebo into space underneath, even like moderately deep down the field, 15, 20 yards, he runs those pretty well. And he's been pretty productive on those. So some of his numbers over the middle of the field are really good. And I think that is a huge part of the potential success for the Commanders. He also has been very, very good in zones where he finds ways to sit down in space, and then he's very hard to tackle. Man-to-man, not going to help you a whole ton. They still need to get some more guys who can win against man-to-man. This is not replaced, now you don't have to bring back Zach Ertz. Yes, you do. I would say you definitely still need to bring back Zach Ertz. They need guys the rest of this offseason who can win in man-to-man situations. But for an offense that is exceptional because it's designed around getting players into space, Deebo Samuel is a fantastic pickup. The other thing that makes this offense really special outside of Jaden, right, and outside of the players in it, schematically, philosophically, what makes this offense special is its versatility. It's its ability to say, we have Austin Eckler and Zach Ertz and some other pieces that can sometimes line up at running back, sometimes at receiver, sometimes at tight end. And how you treat them can create advantages for us. And there is perhaps no piece in the last half decade of NFL football that is more versatile and more difficult to understand how we should treat that player as a defense than Deebo Samuel. Because you can play him and Austin together, and you can line up like you have no running backs on the field. Or you can line up like you have two. You can line Deebo up single back. You can line him up in the gun. You can line him up in the slot. You can line him up outside. And all of those places, you can create different mismatches. You add that to the physicality, and he is, in many ways, a perfect fit for the Commanders. So why is he available? Well, he's had some issues with his weight, had some issues staying in shape. He hasn't missed a ton of games, but the production has fallen off. Part of that last year, though, the worst season of his career, was that he had pneumonia in the middle of the year. So that's not really like a conditioning, weight issue, anything like that. He came firing out of the gate last year, and he had a great training camp. But he then got pneumonia in the middle of the season and tried to play, couldn't do that. It just wasn't right for the rest of the way, on top of some other nicks and knacks and some weight issues and things that did crop up. But you get him in a contract year. You get him with a guy in Adam Peters who knows him. You get him with Dan Quinn, who's as good of a motivator and also a manager of players and people, right? The way he managed Zach to make sure he stayed healthy throughout the year. They can do that kind of stuff with Deebo. And if Deebo has anything left in the tank, I think we're going to find out this year in Washington. Because if he doesn't, if Deebo's just cooked, then that's kind of how it goes. He made his money. He ran his face through people for about 7 years, and he'll go, all right, I just can't do this anymore. And Washington will be like, you can't do this for us anymore. We're not paying you anything. And maybe another team takes a flyer. Or maybe, is there a way this is Deebo Samuel's last season in the NFL? If he's truly cooked which happens sometimes with like the running back type of guys who run through people for a bunch of years that are super physical, and then that's just too many hits on their body, and they're not as quick, not as sharp, can't stay healthy. Yeah, that's a risk. If you gave up a fifth-round pick and, decent receiver money for that over 1 year, it's worth the risk. Because if he's not cooked, which I would guess he's not, because 2 years ago he was good and last year was super weird for everybody with the 49ers, then you might have just gotten a guy that's going to help you way more in the next year, maybe even 2, than a fifth-round pick probably would. Yes, Adam Peters before has turned fifth-round picks into George Kittle, but the guy they took in the 5th round last year basically got a redshirt year. So for a team that's trying to win right now, I think this is a very smart move. It is worth the risk, and thus off we go into the Deebo Samuel era of Washington football. What do you think? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Taking your calls on Deebo to DC next on The Hoffman Show. 301-230-0980 is the phone number here on the Hoffman Show, on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube as well at the Team 980. And taking your calls, as I just said. And Anthony, while we're waiting for calls, we got to fix your camera, bro. We can't. I appreciate that our new bosses. Oh, that's better. If we just get it. Oh, can you get it back down a little bit more? You just got a lot of room above your head right there. That's more like it. Just can that whole screen just tilt a little bit? Yeah, there you go. Is that
better?
Now you look like you.
Okay.
You didn't look like you when you were hungry.
That's fair.
By the way, I messed myself up today. I did a hard workout this morning, went straight into the show with Tony after like a protein shake, and then basically didn't eat until like 3:30. I walked in to work today. Anthony probably see like my eyes sunk back into my head.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't pretty. I eventually had a little fig bar situation on top of the lunch that I had. Currently having some dill pickle snacks as well. I think I need to replace some of the salt content. So we're getting back to being humane. And Anthony's camera is back to now looking like. I mean, the weird thing was it was also like way super zoomed in, which I think was something that I had to fix on my end. But yeah, it was
not good.
Not great. Also, I'm still not used to the fact that you're on the other side of the screen now.
Oh yeah, I gotta go look at the stream now.
So I'm looking at you, kid. If I look at Anthony in real life,
looking at you?
Yeah, it does look like you're looking at me.
Oh, okay.
Which you are. Hey, buddy. All right. Again, the point is that you can call us at 301-230-0980, and then we don't have to do clown material to vamp for time. Oh, someone they just hung up.
They did indeed.
I thought we were getting going on the calls.
I thought so too.
Let's see what the YouTube chat says. Really nothing. We got people watching for now.
Talking about Deebo?
Yeah. I mean, I know people
Do you get the sense that a lot of fans are excited about the move?
Yes. I also get the sense there's a lot of other fans that aren't.
I'm sort of kind of in the middle, I'm not going to lie.
All right, talk to me. Football therapy. You're not Linnell, but we can do it.
I mean, I understand.
Step into my office.
Oh, hold on. We got our call back.
Oh, okay. All right. Someone's calling. But then we'll get Anthony sick. I kind of get both. It's just why the perspective I think is important. Like, I like the deal. I like the move because I think ultimately the price is worth the risk. But I don't have misgivings. I don't have a false sense of security that like Washington's wide receiver problems are now solved. They still don't have enough dudes to fill out the roster. Nevertheless, do they have the appropriate pieces around Terry McLaurin? Signing Deebo Samuel or trading for Deebo Samuel is not going to stop me from taking basically anybody that I would have otherwise taken in this draft. That is, if somehow Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas who ran on an official 4.29, if he's available at 29, like I'm still taking him at 29. Maybe the one guy that it would give me pause on. There's this kid out of TCU that's kind of like a Deebo starter kid, Anthony. Well, now I probably don't feel like I need that. But maybe if you think he's a Deebo starter kid and you think he's a better long-term solution than Deebo, like, sure, go get him.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, the taller receiver, the speed receiver, like, they have Deebo. He's his own weapon. He's his own dude. He's his own guy. He's his own piece of this offense. But their receiver, like traditional receiver stuff, like if they want to bring back Noah Brown on a cheap deal, fine. OZ, Jameson, fine. If Diami's not too crazy expensive, fine. Nevertheless, going and chasing the Darius Slaytons and you know, I'm probably not going after like Devontae Adams. There's only so many of the like, hey, you've been a top guy personalities I want in one room. But especially at 30 years old when I am trying to build something sustainable, even if Deebo is more short term. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Does that help your middleness, or are you still kind of stuck?
I mean, the trade has happened. I'm going to grow to love the pick, but
Let's say you have to love it. You just have to accept it for. You don't have to. You don't have to do anything. You're a grown man. You can do whatever you want. But I would say it's not necessarily about loving it. It's about saying like, this shows to me that we're doing stuff. Adam's awake at the wheel. In case there was any doubt, they're definitely pushing some chips in to be good immediately. And this is a move that pushes them in the right direction, but doesn't solve all their problems.
Yeah, I mean that's more so like where I'm thinking anyway. Because I understand we have Terry and I understand we have Luke. Those are the only two receivers, that we have signed on the contract right now. So addressing wide receivers definitely going to be important this offseason. But I just don't know how much of the needle, what is his name? Deebo moves, the needle in that receiver room, just because I don't think he's all that good of a receiver. I understand how good he is, after he has the ball, what he can do after the catch. But it's sort of kind of like we have to scheme this guy open like every time.
Yeah, but they already do that.
Yeah.
Like, all they got to do is run their offense, and he's going to be put in spots in that offense that they already do. Like, I just saw a stat on NFL Live. Jaden and Caleb actually were tied at throwing the most screens outside the numbers in 2024. Imagine if some of those screens are going to Deebo versus the guys they went to. That's all you got to do. The jet sweeps. Some of them for Diami went well, but like, what if you had the best guy in the league the last 5 years doing it? And for all of the decline of Deebo, and that was real last year statistically, he was still 12th in the NFL in YAC last year.
Yeah.
So he can still get it that way. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Todd. Todd, get us started on the phones here on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for taking my call. Listen to you whenever I get home for work.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So for me, I remember, the bad years and the good years, and for me, this is an indication of what it's like, as we've said before, to have grown-ups running things. What you have is essentially somebody who has 1 year left on their contract, and you have a need for someone who can do the jet sweeps, the screens, and all those types of things. And you basically get him for what equates to where Washington is picking, which is more like a sixth-round pick. So for me, this is a very low risk, as you said, high reward option, for the team. And I think that, like I said, it could. I mean, even if it doesn't go well, then and he's cooked, after all, like you said, after all the physical way he's played, and then so be it. But I think this is worth a shot.
I totally agree with you, Todd. Thanks for the call. Really appreciate it, and appreciate you listening every day as you get home here on the Team 980. I think that's the thing, right? The risk, the $17 million, I'm not going to say it means nothing, but it means next to nothing because they have so much cap space. And they needed to add juice to the offense, and getting bona fide playmakers is hard. And they're not going to become available unless they're either a supremely high cost or there's an element of risk. And the chances that you're going to get a guy who can be as good in 2025 as Deebo in the first round, or in the fifth round, I beg your pardon, is slim. Like, fifth rounders, yeah, can they turn into great players? Of course. They're scattered all over the league. And Adam Peters has taken a couple of them. But mostly fifth rounders are guys that are special teamers. It's like, oh, let me go get a linebacker who can play special teams or a safety that can play special teams. They did that in undrafted free agency last year. They went and got Tyler Owens as a UDFA, and he turned into a monster on special teams last year. And we'll see if he ever becomes anything on defense. But if 4 years from now, Jeremy Reeves is retired and Tyler Owens becomes the new Jeremy Reeves, special teams captain for the next 10 years for this team, sick. And so I think the other thing is the fifth-round pick in terms of getting the right amount of draft capital in this draft. And good question from Ellison on YouTube in the comments that how many more picks do you think we'll have after this draft is over? Because right now we only have 6. Remember, John Allen's on the trade block. You could get back to 7, and that's your average, right, or your baseline, 1 pick for each round. They've already upgraded their third-round pick. Obviously, they lost their natural selection in the Marshawn Lattimore trade, but that they already had an extra third rounder in the Jahan trade that is actually Miami's third round pick. So they've upgraded their third. They're now down a fifth. And if they can get, either trade back in this draft, you can wind up getting 7 or 8 players in this draft, or you can trade another player away, and maybe you can get something late in this draft, and John Allen is obviously already on the block. So I tend to think they will draft between 6 and 8 players. And if they're short one, that sucks. But you're +1 last year kind of off of the UDFA deal with not only a special teamer in Tyler Owens, but you got a heavier rookie class with Colson Yankoff as well, the undrafted free agent tight end who was a good special teamer for them all throughout last year. And so they can probably do that again this year. So that's the benefit of having guys who are, good scouts. 301-230-0980. Now the phone lines are popping. We'll get to more of your calls next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Anthony, earlier we had to reset your camera. I was looking up at NFL Live. I don't know where this bite from Sean McVay is from, but Sean needs to get his camera situation. I know he's got a lot of cool game balls behind him, but Sean, your head can't be in the bottom third of the screen. Right now they're playing Matthew Stafford highlights. But, yeah, what are we doing?
Wow, that is really, really bad.
Someone needs to tell Sean to just pull his laptop down.
Yeah, tilt it. Good gracious.
Come on, guy. You're the young coach. It'd be one thing if it was like Bill Belichick. By the way, you see Belichick and UNC is going to do Hard Knocks?
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, they can't get anyone to do the Joe Shane bit. Obviously, in the NFL the offseason, which was really good television and bad for Joe Shane, apparently. So apparently Belichick and the UNC program is going to do it.
Wow.
I'm pretty intrigued.
I think a lot of people will be intrigued.
Yeah. Anyway, 301-230-0980 is the phone number. 301-230-0980. Let's go get some more opinions on the Deebo Samuel trade. Washington acquiring the 2021 All-Pro. Let's go to Stanley. Stanley, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig and Anthony, how you guys doing?
Doing well, man. Thanks for asking. Hope you are as well.
Okay, yeah, I got a couple of them. I'm gonna say them quick, and then I'm gonna take it off the air. Look, on the Deebo, love it, man, love it. I just think Deebo was kind of sort of in a situation where he was Devontae Adams, didn't want to be in 49ers anymore. He could have came back in a few of them games he was quote unquote hurt in. Just didn't want to be there, man. He checked out. So I think he's where he want to be. I think he's going to show out. Now, the next thing, I'm going to take it a little slightly off topic with the 49ers. Who would you think is the better quarterback, Brock Purdy or Kirk Cousins? Sean, you know the Shanahan's love them to Kirk Cousins. Do they pay Purdy or do they pay Kirk Cousins? Which is cheaper at this point.
Well, thanks for the call, Stanley. Appreciate it. I'll let you take it off the air. I definitely think that the Commanders are going to, the Niners are going to pay Brock Purdy. Like, that's pretty obvious at this point in the proceedings. How much, I think, is the question, but, like, that's a deal that's going to get done. And if they don't sign, or, like, they could also technically, I guess, try to acquire Kirk, assuming that the Falcons put him up on the trade block. He's not currently actually available. But could you get him on the trade block for a late-round pick? Sure. Something probably even less than the fifth they just got from Washington. Sure. That's an option. They love Kirk in terms of what Kyle has run in the past, but also Kirk really struggled to move last year. So I don't think that a play action heavy, hey, you got to get out there and get the stretch handoff play done is exactly what they're looking for. Let's keep it rolling, though, with thoughts on the Deebo Samuel trade at 301-230-0980. Let's go to Jason. Jason, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig, thanks for taking my call. First, I got to say, it's 2025. No more Kirk talk. We're over that, please.
Look, Kirk can be talked about, just not here. We're good on that.
Yeah, there you go. Anywhere else but here. I'm very indifferent about Deebo, and that's not to say that I'm against it or love it. It doesn't feel like it moves the needle much. I've heard a lot of people say, well, we've got this awesome 1-2 punch now. I don't know. This team hasn't had a number two for a while, and it doesn't feel like it's gotten figured out. A fifth-round draft pick is really nothing, so that's great. But in the same respect, it really says a lot about what the 49ers thought of him, and it indicates to me that he's more of a project than he's worth. And I know Quinn and Peters have the formula for, getting a lot out of guys, but how many projects can you take on like that? I don't know. I'm very indifferent. I'll be happy if it works out, but if it doesn't, it's not going to be any kind of surprise.
So, Jason, I think that's a great take. There's a couple of things that I think are worth pointing out, though, which and I'll let you take get the points off the air, if you will. Thanks for calling, man. I appreciate it. And I think Jason, in terms of like the emotional investment, is right. Like, this isn't all of a sudden Commanders have an amazing 1-2 punch. There's still more they need to do in that receiver room. He is a very unique, to use Jason's word, project, because he needs to get the ball in certain ways, but like those ways exist within Washington's offense. I think that's an important point. You got to run, as Logan calls them, the slammer screens. You got to run these deep digs. You got to, get some of the RPOs and the orbits and all those. Those are the ways Deebo gets the ball. The ways this offense functions work for Deebo Samuel. In terms of what the 49ers think of him, they were going to cut him because they are at a different point in their build. Deebo, things that run its course. Sometimes it's just time to move on. Sometimes, especially in football where things are really, really intense, the 10-year marriages of players and organizations, especially when the organization hasn't changed coaches or most of their front office personnel, those are hard. and if players have to change their role and who's the number one and I'm not the highest paid, and like it's a lot of personnel dynamics. Not to mention, it's a math problem. The Niners need to create some cap space. And what the amount they have to pay Deebo is different than when Washington has to pay Deebo because they have the prorated signing bonus money. So he's more expensive for them to keep than it is for Washington to take on. They're taking on two very different values. What it really shows in a fifth-round pick is not necessarily what the Niners think of him, it's what other teams think of him. Because I bet you that if Houston offered a fourth, because that was the other team that was reported in the mix last Friday, if Houston was offering a fourth rounder, I think Deebo Samuel would be on his way to Houston, not on his way to DC. They didn't do that. They took the fifth. Maybe Houston was just offering a sixth. And so the league is telling you, hey, we'd rather wait and fight it out for Deebo on the free agent market. And Washington was like, well, he's not going to get to the free agent market if we don't trade for him because Houston's got this offer on the table. What's it going to take for us to beat it? It's only a fifth. Okay, let's do it. Houston, do you want to match that? No. And then it gets done. Or whatever other teams were involved. I'm not privy to those negotiations, nor do I have the sources to talk to that were. That's just what's been reported. So it's really not that Washington or San Francisco doesn't value him. Just their marriage had come to a time where it was time for a split. Deebo will be welcomed back as they split amicably later when they honor NFC Championship teams, and he might have his number put up in the Ring of Honor. Like, we'll see. But ultimately, for Washington, they get him at a relative discount compared to what he was getting paid because of how NFL contract structures work. Last one for the moment, and we'll take more calls next. So if you're on hold and I'm not about to say your name, don't go anywhere. I will get to you. But let's go to Emery. Emery, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, what's up, Craig?
What's up, Emery?
What's happening, man? Hey, listen, first of all, I feel like Adam Peters needs a standing ovation for turning Ridgeway and Jahan Dawson into Deebo Samuels and Latimer. Second of all, Deebo is kind of downtrending, so I think putting him in the third receiver role versus the second receiver role will probably be more beneficial to Jay's development. Now, there are a lot of people you could kind of pick up with that second. So if we're not done after Deebo, then I think this is still a good investment. I think we could pick up Keenan Allen on free agency. I think we could probably pick up Tetra T-Mac if he falls. I don't think he's going to fall, but he could fall as far as what the draft is trending right now. Another outlier is I don't think the Steelers like George Pickens. So if they end up picking up T-Mac...
Hold on. Emery, are you serious?
Listen.
Emery, did you pay attention at all to what made the Commanders good last year?
Yes.
Okay. How many knuckleheads did they have?
Well, when you have a good supporting staff and they're getting touches, they don't really be as much of a knucklehead as they were when they're the only Deebo on the team.
No. The way you have a locker room full of no knuckleheads is not to be like, oh, we have other guys who are non-knuckleheads that can manage the knuckleheads. And you don't bring in a knucklehead. And George Pickens is so far beyond knucklehead that I personally could get paid for the Commanders to have George Pickens next year, and I'd be like, he's not worth the headache for me to have to talk about. That's how far away I want from George Pickens.
Hold on, Craig. Because now you're talking about knuckleheads, and Deebo was clearly a knucklehead.
Deebo's not a knucklehead. Very, very different. Deebo's super competitive. He's emotional. It's very, very different. George Pickens quits on his team.
George Pickens is a knucklehead. That's a little bit of a double standard. The man smacked the kicker.
No, he smacked the long snapper after the kicker couldn't make it, and the kicker stood up to him. That's a different. Or the long snapper stood up to him. George Pickens will just quit in the middle of games. He is so unreliable. Deebo is never not going to try. George Pickens will not try. That's not tolerated here. That ain't going to be how that goes.
How about this? Another option. Why don't you take that second-round pick instead of drafting another receiver? Go ahead and see if you can get DK. I just need somebody who's able to take the top off the defense. Terry isn't necessarily going to stretch the field. Deebo definitely isn't going to stretch the field. So we need somebody who's going to make the play.
Terry
honest.
McLaurin is not going to stretch the field?
That's not his forte. His forte
What is Terry McLaurin's forte?
He's more of a possession receiver than he is a speedster.
The guy with 4.3 speed who had a bunch of 60-yard catches in the air on yards in the air last year? That guy?
That guy. I mean, if you look at any other quarterback that we play with, he didn't have that production that he had.
Because the quarterback stunk. Emory. I'm going to give you a homework assignment, okay? Your homework assignment is go watch football. That's your homework assignment. Because I'm convinced that you didn't watch football. We'll take more of your calls next. Nick Wagner, ESPN.com, joining us at the top of the hour, 5 p.m. here on the Hoffman Show. Just quick cleanup on Isle Emery. Anthony, that was unbelievable. What was dumber, George Pickens or Terry McLaurin isn't a deep receiver? The correct answer is yes.
I was about to say both.
So I look, FTN Fantasy does like their stats engine's the best in the business, so much so that I paid for it. So in terms of ADOT, average depth of target, Pickens is at 13.7. DK is at 13.7. Terry's at 13.3. So Pickens and Metcalf are tied for 10th. Terry is 15th. That's average depth of target. In terms of the air yards per game, let's see. It's so funny. Like Bucky Irving has -9 because he caught so many screen yards behind the line or screen. Screen pass behind the line of scrimmage. Terry is 11th in the NFL last year, average over 91 air yards per game. And in terms of percentage, let's see, air yards share, the percentage of teams' total air yards that a receiver has. Terry was 5th. So it's not like he was then surrounded by other options. This is the dude who got the ball down the field. He was incredibly successful. He was a Pro Bowler. The film is the film. The numbers are the numbers. The eyeballs are the eyeballs. And I have no idea where any of those three things entered Emery's brain.
I don't either, man.
Okay, let's keep it going then. 301-230-0980. Let's go to Marcus. Marcus, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
What's up, Craig?
What's up, Marcus? Coming live from a wind tunnel.
Man. No, I'm not in a wind tunnel. Well, I guess it kind of sounds like it. No, I'm live in a 5.0 right now, man. But I we need to. I wish you guys had like an opening. And no disrespect, Anthony, I love you, man. But we got to screen these callers because it's amazing what they come up with sometimes. Anywho, this Deebo Samuel situation, right? From a Commanders fan standpoint, I can somewhat see the hesitation some fans have. But if you look at it from an NFL fan standpoint, like for one, we've talked about needing to upgrade our wide receiver to for quite a while. And I know a lot of fans hear it and a lot of fans, listening, they take it in. So signing Deebo Samuel it seems like this is the upgrade, this is the wide receiver 2 upgrade. But to me, this is just an upgrade to the wide receiver room as a whole, right? You don't understand, like, the amount of doors this move opens. Like, this is a guy that now defenses have to really plan for. You know what I mean? This isn't just a wide receiver. Like, you have to plan for your jet sweeps. You got to plan for screens. You got to plan for, quick ins and quick outs, like things like that. Like, this is a legit threat that we have. And if we don't sign another receiver that fills that wide receiver 2 spot, he can be that. If we do sign another receiver that can fill that wide receiver 2 spot, then this is just a gadget. Well, and I hate to minimize him as a gadget guy, but like he's the top tier of gadget guys that we have that can pretty much do it all. So,
but the thing is, Marcus, like to your point, like it's a gadget guy in an offense that needs gadgets.
Exactly. I was looking, and I love Acho. I think his name is Emmanuel Acho, whatever. I can't remember which one, but the one that's on TV. I love him sometimes, but sometimes his takes are like kind of crazy. But he made a very, very good point, and he was like, "This is a down off guy for Jaden Daniels." You know what I mean? You have a Deebo Samuel, and you throw a screen, that's a down off for Jaden Daniels. You can give him a jet sweep, that's a down off for Jaden Daniels. And the more you can preserve Jaden Daniels throughout the game, the better he's only going to get better in those clutch moments when you really need him to step up. And Deebo Samuel does absolutely that. So I do not understand the hesitation. Like, this is an amazing pick that you didn't have to dig too deep in your pocket for. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
I mean, look, he was at a down year last year, but if he comes back up, it's going to be fine. And if not, you just move on.
Even with the down, if we have his down year last year, he's still the number 2 receiver on the Commanders.
Well, I think at that point you're probably having a different discussion of a problem. But I hear you, Marcus. I got to keep it moving.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call, and good luck wherever the hell you are. We got sirens, we got wind tunnels, we got all kinds of stuff going on with Marcus. Let's go to Noel in Chicago to wrap up the hour. Noel, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig. Good talking with you again.
You too, and Noel, and your perfectly quiet background and nice, clear phone. What an absolute joy this is. Anyway, keep going.
It's a good way to close out the calls, right?
Yeah,
Happy
indeed.
it's clear and pristine. Look, I love the fact that we have Deebo on our team. Okay, I love the fact that we have a great playmaker. He obviously had a down year last year. The only thing that I am curious and somewhat concerned about is we don't like. I'm okay with the fact that we have him, but like we don't have a young developing wide receiver unless there's so much belief in Luke, who's still learning the position. So again, like we have free agency. I don't know if we're gonna continue to add to the wide receiver room there by bringing back Alameda, by getting everybody else that we had last year. But I wouldn't mind trying to develop a young wide receiver also. So if they want to do it with Luke, that's fine, and I hope that he continues to progress. But, we're also a candidate to trade back with our pick. But if the wide receiver from Mizzou is there, or if Ibuka is there, if Luther Burden, that's his name, if either of them are there, I'm running up to the podium. Again, like I love that we have Deebo, but that's just a concern that I have because we don't have a wide receiver that Jaden can grow with, because with Deebo, if he doesn't play to his potential and then we decide to let him go after 1 year, even if he's serviceable, Terry's going to be due for another contract as well. And priority number one is getting Zach Ertz, who's obviously like almost close to his mid-30s. So that's my only kind of concern. But I mean,
well, that's the thing, right? Is
something to keep that in mind.
100%. Sorry to cut you off. You actually said the exact thing that I was hoping that you would, which is like, let's just keep that in mind. But like, this doesn't mean they're done. This is the first move they make, not the last.
Right.
And I think that's the thing that everyone has to remember. Noel, I always appreciate you. Thanks for the call. Is like, they're not done, and the investment nor who Deebo is prevents you from doing any of the things that Noel or anybody else might mention or is thinking of. You can take a receiver in the first round. Absolutely. You can take one in the second round, third round, fourth. You take a receiver wherever you want. You can spend more money at receiver. Like Deebo, at the cost that you get him at, the $17 million, like, okay, that's a decent chunk of change. The fifth round pick you give up is nothing. And I expect them to do that. They're going to bring back some of these guys, but I think Noel's larger point is correct. You have to start getting some younger guys in that room. You can't just say we've got Jaden Daniels, we'll make it work every year. And obviously you're hoping that in year 2, Luke McCaffrey, who was a quarterback like 5 years ago, that he can be a guy that develops with Jaden in the long term, but that you got more than that. You got more pop, and whether it's Golden or Burden or one of these guys in the first round who falls, Ibuka, the kid out of Ohio State, who's just like a pro's pro type of receiver, super reliable, not super special in any way, but Golden, who's a 4.29 guy, like he is special in terms of athleticism. You can take any of those guys. And there's some guys later in the draft that are interesting too. You're just probably not going to take a gadget guy because now you got your gadget guy. But that's short term. We'll see. 301-230-0980. Appreciate all the calls there. We will talk much more about Deebo Samuel throughout the rest of the show, including with ESPN.com's Nick Wagner, who covered him in San Francisco, next. It's the Hoffman Show, hour number 2 here on the team at 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. The MASN deal is no more for the Nationals. We'll talk to Chelsea Janes about it at 5:30, but right now, top story of the day, you know what it is. Deebo Samuel's coming to D.C. Let's talk about it with someone who knows Deebo quite well.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
Joining us to discuss more on the Deebo Samuel trade, someone who's had Deebo Samuel on his beat for the entirety of Deebo's NFL career. It's our pal Nick Wagner from ESPN.com. Nick, we knew when Adam Peters made the transition from San Francisco assistant general manager to Washington general manager that there would probably eventually be some guys that would follow him. When did you think it was realistic that Deebo Samuel would be one of those guys? Did you always kind of think this may go down, knowing that Deebo's kind of been 1 foot in, 1 foot out the last couple of years? Or was it at some point during the season when Washington was really good, did you go, I don't know, maybe Deebo will wind up following Adam to Washington next year?
Yeah, I think there's been a couple of steps to this. But the first thing is there was always going to come a breaking point between the 49ers and Deebo, and more specifically between the 49ers and one of their top 2 receivers. Like I just never got the idea from talking to people at the 49ers that they had an appetite to pay both Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk near the top of the wide receiver market. It's tough to pull that off. You see the Eagles doing it, but there's not a lot of teams that are paying 2 receivers that amount of money. So then you kind of look at how the contracts were laid out, what happened with Brandon Ayuk last year. Obviously, there was a lot of scuttlebutt about him being traded. My understanding was the Niners always, throughout that whole process, preferred to keep Ayuk. It was just a matter of if they could find the number to make that happen. And then so last offseason, there were a lot of things that kind of pointed towards Deebo Samuel was going to be the one on his way out. Part of that was a drop-off in production, but also just the fact that they really had trouble, getting away from man coverage and dealing with the man coverage that the Chiefs threw at them in the Super Bowl. That's not exactly Deebo Samuel's game. They drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round last year. And so all those signs were kind of pointing towards a divorce coming this offseason. As far as when I thought Washington would be a player, I think when you saw the Commanders kind of take off this year, that made more sense because I didn't get the impression that I just don't think there was a team that was going to be, in the bottom of the draft or bottom of the standings that was going to be looking for a Deebo Samuel type of player. But once it became clear the Niners were going to move on from him, I think Washington was certainly at the top of my head, and especially because Terry McLaurin is the type of receiver who complements him really well because McLaurin can do some of those things. He runs so many routes and is good at getting down the field and types of things that will open up underneath things for Deebo Samuel. So to me, it just made a lot of sense from a football perspective. And then you factor in the Adam Peters element to this, and it really made all kinds of sense.
So the production side of it is where Washington fans are like, I don't know. The production obviously dropped off. Nothing like 2021. That season is like an all-time wide receiver season. That's not who he's been his entire career. It is what got him paid. Congrats to Deebo. But even if you get 2023 Deebo, I think Washington fans would be thrilled. So what happened in 2024?
Yeah, I think what you've seen is an accumulation of things. First of all, with Deebo Samuel, the thing that makes him great is also the thing that is difficult for him to deal with because his style of play just doesn't lend itself to maximum durability. And that doesn't necessarily mean he's missing a bunch of games because if you look at games missed over the last 3 years, there's not a lot of them. I mean, he missed some, but it's not bad. It's not like Cooper Kupp has missed more games than Deebo Samuel over the last 3 years by a fairly wide margin. But it's the nicks and the bruises, the things that slow him down. Even just this past year, he had multiple things that happened, including an illness in which he had pneumonia symptoms and missed a big chunk of a game that it looked like he was going to play. He was active, and then he tried to give it a go, and within a few plays, it just wasn't going to work out. So I think that is part of it, certainly the injury standpoint with Deebo Samuel because of his playing style, his kind of fearless take on anybody style that makes it difficult for him to stay healthy. So there was some of that. I also think this year, it's easy to kind of go back and change history. But going into training camp, Deebo Samuel was in great shape. He had a really good training camp, and there was a lot going on out here during camp last year with Trent Williams, with Brandon Ayuk. There were so many different things that were happening. And Deebo was like the one reliable star who was on the practice field every day and producing, had a really good camp. And I thought he was in line for a really big season, also because he was kind of in a de facto contract year. Not exactly a contract year, but essentially one. And so it really seemed like everything was lining up for him to have that kind of year. It just didn't happen. As the year went on, I don't think he was in as good a shape as he came in with. Some of that was because of the injuries, and maybe it made it harder for him to stay in shape. But that has been something that people have kept an eye on throughout his career here. And then I also think there's just an element of there's so many mouths to feed here between Ayuk and Kittle and McCaffrey. And I know they were missing some of those guys this year, but Juwan Jennings had a breakthrough year. It just made it more difficult for Deebo to produce. So I do think this is a player who's probably more on the downturn, but I also think, to your point, it wouldn't be outrageous for him to get back to something like that 2023 level, which I'm sure the Commanders would be more than happy to take.
Nick Wagner, ESPN.com, with us here on the Hoffman Show talking Deebo Samuel. The biggest number that dropped off to me, or like the most concerning number, is the rushing yardage. He went from about over 6 a carry for 3 straight years to 3 a carry last year. What was up with that? I know the 49ers offense as a whole struggled running the football last year, so there's certainly a lot of factors that could go into it. You watched it all. What were the ones that stuck out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, at some point with Deebo Samuel, the element of surprise is gone. So, when the Niners sprung that on everyone in the 2021 season, it was out of necessity. Raheem Mostert was injured. Elijah Mitchell was getting banged up. And so Deebo was kind of just like a last resort, and it worked so well that it became kind of a staple of their offense. And so I think as the years have gone on, and also you ran into in the ensuing 2 years, where they had Christian McCaffrey, they had George Kittle, they had Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, they had all these guys where, even if you knew Deebo was going to get the ball, it was a lot harder to stop. So last year, I think you saw a combination of things. One, a lot of those guys were missing. So everyone's eyes were on Deebo Samuel. When you put him in the backfield, everyone was expecting it and stopping it pretty easily, actually. And like you said, there were also issues running the ball, and those were blocking issues in some instances as well. The other thing is Deebo Samuel just, quite frankly, did not do as good a job as he has in the past of breaking tackles. And again, I think that is a play style that is the thing that made him great, but it's very hard to sustain that ability for a long period of time because you take so much of a pounding from the many hits that you take. Even if you're breaking tackles, you're still taking punishment. So I think it was a combination of those things. And even if you look at Deebo Samuel as a receiver last year, wasn't breaking as many tackles when he wasn't in the run box and wasn't confined to space that way. So there was a little bit of a drop off in that regard. I still think, Craig, that there is ways that Deebo Samuel can be used in the run game, that he can be effective. I just think that the days of him being able to line up in the backfield, taking a handoff and ripping off 6 yards to carry are probably gone. That doesn't mean you can't use him with jet sweeps, orbit motion, those types of things where you can get the ball in his hands in an easier way than throwing it downfield.
For sure, and those are all staples of the Washington offense with Cliff, and so are some of like the slammer screens and all those kinds of things that Deebo's been amazing at, and the Commanders last year, like De'Ami Brown did a good job of those, but he ain't Deebo Samuel. As far as the off the field / on the field, off the field stuff, that is the other area where I think fans have questions. We saw the incident on the sideline last year where he's yelling at Jake Moody and then slaps the long snapper. There's been all the contract talk in the offseason. And for me personally, Nick, I'm guessing like you as someone who covers the league, like these are things that happen. They are not ideal. There are guys that take care of their contract stuff more quietly than Deebo did. That is probably more ideal if we're talking about it from a fan / organizational perspective. But we also know that character and kind of the guys that the brotherhood and how they came together was a huge part of this Washington season. So what do we make of some of Deebo's, I'm going to call it off the field, but I'm just saying that as a way to categorize things, not in an indicting way. What do we make of the off the field stuff?
Yeah, I think it's revisionist history for people to pretend like Deebo was some sort of a cancer or a problem in the locker room. I don't think that. I don't feel that. Now, were there things that annoyed people? Sure. And you mentioned the incident with the kicker and the long snapper and things like that. The thing about Deebo is Deebo's an emotional player, and I think other guys actually feed off of that more than anything. And I think if you talk to a lot of his teammates here, they all loved him because he was that guy he wasn't afraid to say whatever was on his mind. But more often than not, Craig, he went out and backed it up. And I think if you go back to the Super Bowl, the last Super Bowl season, and they lost to the Chiefs, there's the Philadelphia situation. If you remember that, they played the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. Brock Purdy gets hurt early on. And that whole offseason, anytime Deebo Samuel was asked about it, he's like, I think we would have won that game. He made it very clear he thought he was going to have a big game, that the Niners would have won that game if Brock Purdy hadn't gotten hurt, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, Eagles fans didn't like that, and then the following season, they played the Eagles in December. Deebo Samuel, that week leading up to that game, spoke his mind. He stood by everything he said, went to the game dressed in all black for what he would later say was the Eagles' funeral, and then put up over 150 yards and 3 touchdowns in the game. So I say all that to say that I think that there is certainly he could rub people the wrong way, but I also think that teammates really appreciate the fact that he is willing to set a tone. And I could tell you, as someone who has covered these guys and knows them pretty well, Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel are really close friends. And I wrote a story about this a couple years ago. And I was talking to Trent Williams about what it is, why he and Deebo kind of, were close and why they were such good friends. And Trent Williams told me that one of the things that he learned from Deebo, who, mind you, is quite a bit younger than Trent, was that it's okay to have a little swag. It's okay to say that you're the best, to speak that into existence, which is a crazy thing to hear from Trent Williams because everybody knows he's one of the best tackles in the league. But Deebo's kind of openness about his own standing in the league made Trent more confident that he could put himself out there in a similar way. So I say all that again because I think that Deebo is largely been a positive influence and a tone setter for a very successful era of 49ers football that, yes, it didn't end in a Lombardi trophy like they would like to, but I think it has been obviously very successful on the aggregate, and I think that Deebo Samuel has been a big part of that.
Nick Wagner, ESPN.com, with us for just another couple of minutes here on the Hoffman Show. That's so interesting to hear that about Trent, because I covered Trent here and I was still on the beat, and he was obviously the best player on the team. And there was always like it's not quite humility, like it is humility, but there's kind of like I know I'm the best, but please don't make me say it kind of thing about it. Right. Like he just kind of give you that smirk. And I love that for Trent, that he now is just like, nope, I'm the best because he is. And it's just so inarguable in terms of what he's been for the last decade in terms of left tackle play in the NFL. All right. Last things for you, Nick. I want to ask you about 2 non-Deebo guys that are also on Commanders fans' radars, free agents for San Francisco. One is one of the top corners on the market, Charvarius Ward. What do you think who is he as a player? And do you think the Niners will bring him back, or is he someone that's going to get paid and go somewhere else? And, Washington could certainly be in the market for another corner opposite of Marshawn Lattimore.
Yeah, Charvarius Ward's market is going to be fascinating because if he had hit the market after the 2023 season, he probably was in line for a $20+ million a year deal. And then last year happened, and so much of what happened, and he would tell you it was one of his worst years, but it was one of his worst years off the field. Like he went through so much, and for people who don't know, his young daughter died kind of suddenly after some heart problems. She was almost 2 years old, and that happened during the bye week. And it just, as you would imagine, for any human being, it threw his whole world kind of into flux for the rest of the season. And so he did come back and he tried to play through it, but as you can imagine, he was distracted for much of that time. Kind of spoke openly about it at the end of the year. Charvarius Ward is still a really good player, I believe. I think he's got a lot of good football still left in him, even though I think he's approaching 30 at this point. I just don't know how teams are going to value him. I will say the chances of him coming back to the 49ers, speaking with him at the end of the year, I didn't get the impression that was going to be likely, and mainly because he, as he said, he has a lot of trauma in California. Like coming back here makes him think about his young daughter, and I think a fresh start kind of situation is something that maybe he is looking for. But again, I don't know what the market would command for him. He's a bigger corner, physical corner, good press corner, can play zone or man. Very confident guy. Had a really tremendous year in 2023, and a good locker room guy. I know his teammates loved him. So if he is in that kind of $13-14 million a year range, that would certainly be more than the Niners could afford, even if coming back here was realistic. But I don't know. I just don't know, frankly, what his market is going to be because, how much do teams say, like, yeah, we understand that you went through a lot last year. We're still going to pay you or not. I don't have that answer.
Yeah. And, who knows? Like, your life has changed forever when something like that happens. So I hope wherever he goes that he's happy, man. That is so brutal. Last guy I want to ask you about, I think Commanders' priority at safety is probably to re-sign Jeremy Chin, but who knows what happens when he hits the market. And obviously it's easy to connect the dots to Talanoa Hufanga, who Adam Peters played a huge role in drafting out in San Francisco. A guy that probably 2 years ago, Nick, you're like, this guy's, I'm going to be covering him for a decade. Like, he's going to be a Niner for life, the level he was playing at. A couple of injury-plagued seasons later, he's now going to hit the free agent market. What kind of player still is he, and what do you think he ultimately, or where do you think he ultimately lands?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of put him and Dre Greenlaw, who's the linebacker that the Niners have, as a free agent. Also, I kind of put those guys in the same bucket where it's really hard to get a read on what their market is going to be because both guys are really good players when they're healthy. Greenlaw in particular, I think, is an outstanding player who probably doesn't get enough credit when he's healthy, but they haven't been healthy enough. And so how do teams value them? Probably, I would say, for me, 1 year kind of prove it deals. Can you stay healthy for a year? And then next year, maybe you cash in. But as you know, Craig, it just takes one team to say, well, we'll give you a 3-year deal or whatever. And, we'll build in some incentives and we'll make it a little bit more lucrative than a 1-year deal with. And maybe they would take that because, just to give you an example, Greenlaw, when he signed his most recent deal with the 49ers, I remember asking him, like, because he signed it during the season. I said, well, why now, Dre? Like, why didn't you want to test the market? Like, you probably could have gone out and got life-changing money, which I guess it's all life-changing money, but you know what I mean? Right. There's levels to this. And he said, I've had some injuries and stuff. I want to get some security for my family. So he signed a 2-year deal that was certainly below the market of what a guy like him would have commanded if he had become free. So I say that because I think both of these guys are in a similar situation where they probably would like some more security, and maybe they could be had below market but above a 1-year prove-it deal, if that makes sense, kind of in a happy medium between those types of things. So as for Hufanga, didn't have quite as many, debilitating injuries as Greenlaw. He's not coming off an Achilles. He was coming off of an ACL from the previous year, and then he dealt with a wrist thing, which I didn't think was a huge deal. But he played pretty well toward the end of the year. I think with Hufanga, what you get is a guy who's very instinctive and he can make big splash plays, but he's also someone who's a little bit prone to giving up those big plays when he's wrong. And so that's kind of the fire that you play with a guy like him, but certainly a great leader, a guy who is, well respected in the locker room. And I think certainly would be there if he was to land there. So I don't know what kind of price you're getting with him, but again, that might be someone who you could get at a relative bargain and see where it goes.
Maybe the free agent market's always been this crazy, and I haven't had to pay as much attention to it because Washington stunk most of the time that I've covered them. But it does feel this year like it's all over the place for so many players. Really unique market. It's gonna be fun to follow over the next couple of weeks. But speaking of which, just like 30 seconds here. This isn't the main point of our call, but I am curious. Like, the Niners are supposed to be good. Like, they still want to compete. Like, where do the Niners see themselves as, potential competition for Washington and Philadelphia and Detroit and the teams at the top of the NFC going into 2025?
I think they're in a little bit of a crossroads right now because they want to be competitive. They want to be competitive every year, and they certainly would like to be Super Bowl competitors this year, if for no other reason than the Super Bowl will be played in their home stadium. But I also think they're in a little bit of a spot, and they won't use the word rebuild, but I think maybe a reset. And the Deebo Samuel is a good example telling you that they're open to this because they're eating $31+ million in dead money. And I think they need to get younger. They know they need to get younger, and they also need to find a way to start kind of clearing their books. So the fact that they're eating that much dead money, I think they're over $60 million in dead money this year, tells you that they're in a little bit of a reset from where they're at contract-wise and in terms of who their core is going to be moving forward, because they're going to sign Brock Purdy to an extension most likely at some point here this offseason. George Kittle will probably get an extension, but I think they're going to be a little bit more selective about who they're building around and who they are right now. So, yes, they want to be competitive. Are they on a Washington or a Philadelphia level? That remains to be seen because they've got a lot of work to do, particularly when it comes to rebuilding both of their lines. Right?
Just use the word recalibrate, Nick. It'll send you right to the NFC Championship game. That's what we did here. No rebuild.
It's funny you say that because John Lynch used that word multiple times. So.
I'm sure he did. Nick, this was great as always. Really appreciate you, man. It's been great reading your coverage of this as it's been building up, and then to have you on the show here to finish it off. Nick Wagner, everybody, ESPN.com. You can check out the story that he and John Keim wrote on the Deebo trade and much, much more. Nick, thanks, dude.
You got it, Craig. Take care. See ya.
ESPN.com's Nick Wagner. When we get back, the Washington Post's Chelsea Janes on the MASN deal finally coming to an end for the Nats. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Thanks again to Nick Wagner, who just joined us from ESPN.com on the Deebo Samuel trade. We'll get back to Deebo and the rest of the news around the NFL. There's a ton of it coming up at 6 o'clock. But right now, it's our pleasure to welcome back to the show someone we've been welcoming on for years and years and years, Chelsea Janes. She covered the Nationals. Now she's covering baseball nationally for the Washington Post. And today, the Nationals, and to some extent, I guess the Orioles, are in the news because our long national nightmare, perhaps more accurately, Chelsea, our long regional nightmare is over. The MASN deal that has held the Nationals hostage, according to, well, the Nationals, is finally no more. The Nationals will have their own TV rights to sell in 2026. Just on a purely personal level, Chelsea, how excited are you that this is the last time we are ever going to talk about this part of this story?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's huge, and I know a lot of people at the Nationals feel the same way. It's a very happy day for everyone, for sure.
I am sure down the street here at Nationals Park, they are absolutely thrilled about this. So what happened here? We know this has been in the courts. There's been this years-long dispute over the value of these TV rights. They, of course, were granted to the Orioles and MASN back when the Nationals came into existence in D.C. because of the proximity. The Orioles were like, well, we need something. If there's going to be another team, we're going to lose parts of our fan base, the whole deal. That's how it all started. How did it end?
We're still trying to kind of figure out what exactly spurred the end, but I think obviously a change in Orioles ownership was the prerequisite. Peter Angelos and his family were very, staunchly against giving anything back to the Nationals. They didn't want them here in the first place. They certainly weren't going to concede. But when David Rubenstein took over, he was pretty clear that, look, with cord cutting being what it is, cable rights aren't worth what they used to be. I'm going to spend more in the courts than I am, fighting this than I am just kind of getting it over with. And he seemed more amenable to getting it done, and clearly that's what happened. The Nats are going to get a pretty significant portion of the money they were owed, for the last few years, and they're going to get to sell their rights on the open market next year, which, even if it doesn't yield more money than the MASN deal did, just gives them a flexibility and a certainty that they haven't had in years.
Now, for a long time, Chelsea, this was seen as one of the holdups in the Lerners selling the team. This announcement also comes, less than a month after the Lerners say, we're actually not going to sell the team. We're taking it off the market. Is that decision final? And do you think that has anything to do with the timing here that the Lerners committed to continuing to own the club?
I don't think the decision not to sell is final. I think if someone came to them with an offer they were happy with, they would take it. And I think this increases the chances that they get one of those, whether it's from Ted Leonsis, who has always wanted a baseball team. At least he's always wanted the rights to broadcast the baseball team on Monumental. I don't know if that leads directly to a sale or just to a sale of the TV rights. But whatever it does, it just makes everything easier. If the Lerners look at this and say, okay, we've got a more certain revenue stream on TV now, we'll keep the team, it makes that easier. If they want to sell, it makes that easier. So I don't quite know which track they're going to take. I don't know that, anyone does. I think that might still be something they're kind of figuring out themselves. But whatever it is, everything has just gotten so much easier, and the future, I think, therefore, has gotten a little bit brighter.
Chelsea Janes, national baseball reporter for the Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show. We'll get to the baseball impact on this, which your colleague, our friend Barry Svrluga, wrote about in just a minute. But in terms of the options of where the Nationals go, this will be their last year on MASN, probably, I guess. I guess they could theoretically turn around and resell the rights to MASN, although that feels a little bit silly. What are the options here? Not only just looking at Monumental as the regional sports network here, but some of the other things that Major League Baseball is trying to do it, and some other models that teams are using, even going back to linear television.
Yeah, I think what we're looking at probably is the easiest solution, which is probably Ted Leonsis and Monumental adding, the Nationals to their portfolio and streaming them that way. But there is a lot going on right now, and I know Rob Manfred really wants to get as many teams' rights streaming wise as he possibly can. So will he encourage the Nats not to sell those? Maybe. Will they listen? Who knows? But it's just kind of an interesting time, and I think regardless, Monumental probably won't be the only people interested in trying to get these rights. I don't know who else might be. It's early to say, but there's a bidder now. So whatever it is, I think the Nats are just going to be happy to be in control of it, to kind of know that the money they agree to is coming in. And whether that's a part of some bigger MLB package or not, I think it's just really good for them, and also something that's going to be interesting to watch play out, because now they'll kind of be able to look at the Orioles and say, what are they getting, and vice versa. So that'll be kind of fascinating.
Can you explain to the audience who may not be as locked in on this what Manfred is trying to do on the national level, and where this kind of 2-year timeline of the next 2 years of rights for every team that may be up, and how that's affecting that?
Yeah, so I think for years, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of MLB, has wanted to get the rights to stream all 30 teams in one place and sell that and say, you pay this, we take all the revenue, and, you get whatever team you want. No blackouts like we know there are now with MLB TV, none of that. The barrier to that has been these cable deals, wherein many teams have committed to have their, games broadcast over, cable systems, and have either not had access to their own streaming rights or have committed those streaming rights to the cable system. So it's not under their control. But as cord cutting has diminished the value of many of those deals, and even forced the people that bought the rights to buy these teams to go bankrupt, which has happened for a lot of teams, everybody's kind of hit the open market. A lot of small market teams have started from scratch. They don't have those deals anymore. So Manfred says, hey, give us your rights. We'll package them up and we'll try to get them out as part of something bigger than MLB. Don't sign some long-term deal that locks you in. We want to see what we can get. Unfortunately, the big teams, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Cubs, the Red Sox, they've all got these massive cable deals. They've got networks that have their own streaming apps, so they're making tons of money. So they don't really have incentive to kind of join this group package that Manfred wants to create. But for a team like the Nationals, they're kind of right on that bubble. Can they get more on their own? Will he be able to kind of talk them into waiting? That's what we've all seen. But the collective bargaining agreement is up in 2026. MLB is in the process of negotiating a new national rights deal with ESPN after kind of ending their most recent one. So it just could go a lot of different ways right now. And I think the Nationals are more in control of their rights than ever in a market that is very unpredictable. But I think if he had his way, Manfred would have their rights and everybody else's, and throw it out to the fans and say, pay this much for streaming and we'll take all the money, and it'll be that easy.
And so it would look something like what MLS has with Apple TV, which most MLS fans hate. So right on par.
Right.
So for Leonsis, what is this worth to him? And is this I guess you kind of touched on this. I just kind of want to unpack it. Him buying the TV rights versus him buying the team. Do you think he's interested in just the TV rights, even if he does not own the Washington Nationals?
I certainly think he's interested in the TV rights, but he's also said he's interested in the team. Now, whether he was only interested in the team because he wanted the TV rights, I don't know. And I think we're all going to find that out. But, he's got the WNBA, he's got hockey, he's got the NBA on his network. What's lacking there? Summer programming. The WNBA is there, but, if you have baseball, you've got stuff that kind of bridges the gap between all those things. You've got all the major sports other than the Commanders in D.C. It's sort of I think that's kind of what his goal has been this whole time. So certainly I would expect him to be interested in the TV rights to the Nationals. Whether he, now feels kind of more equipped to buy the team because he knows that he would have those rights, I don't know. But I certainly think that this had to happen before, that could even come into play. They weren't going to sell it to him with those rights not included. And, here they are. They either can negotiate a deal for the rights, the team, both, whatever. But I would expect that to be the direction it goes, or at least starts, as the learners kind of recalibrate with this news.
Yeah, it's so funny the way that you phrase that, right? Does he want the TV rights because he wants the team, or does he want the team because he wants the TV rights?
Right,
and with Ted, I don't know. And I I'm sure that he knows, but I don't think the rest of us do. If you want more of this, and if I didn't ask the question that you want of Chelsea, her, Barry's Ferluga, and Ben Strauss, the Post media writer, will be hosting a chat at 11 a.m. tomorrow on WashingtonPost.com/sports. You can check that out. Chelsea, always appreciate your time here on the radio, ma'am, and I'm sure we'll talk to you as we get closer to baseball season.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Chelsea Janes, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, it's not our weekend preview, Anthony, because the weekend is over. It's our weekend review. Also brought to you by
Nobody, Craig.
Here's what's trending. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always alive as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too, at the Team 980. Anthony, before we get into our weekend in review, I got to say, your green jacket, very like Eagles Kelly green, and it looks good on you, which I don't mean to draw those two things together and be like, oh, I'm trying to cause trouble for you. But last week during the Combine, I wore a green shirt, and I got a couple YouTube comments about it.
Ooh.
And people are like, I love your content. How can you wear an Eagles green shirt? And my answer was simple. I said, my wife thinks I look great in green. I think she's right. I think it's a color that works for me. So, Anthony, I think you look great in your green, sir.
Thank you, sir. But also, to everybody that does have something to say about my green, how long until I can wear green?
That's kind of the thing. It's like, would I wear a green shirt on Eagles week? No.
But the season, we lost about a month and a half ago.
It wasn't a month and a half ago. It was only like a month ago. Month and a week ago?
Oh, yeah, because it is, the third, month and a week, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
It's been 5 weeks, guys. Let it go. New season. Yeah. I mean, I guess the new league season hasn't started just
But still,
yet.
like, why are you trying to step on my man's game?
Yeah, man. Hey, look. I look good in this green, sir.
That's what I'm saying.
Thank you, sir.
Figured I would throw that out there for you.
Thank you.
Felt like I was getting you in trouble for a second. But helping you out.
Yes, you were.
Holler at your boy. All right, the weekend in review is brought to you by
nobody, Craig.
Yep, but we're going to do it anyway. Fun weekend all around the sports world. Of course, the Combine was one of the biggest things. We'll talk about that more as we go in the 6 o'clock hour. How about the Zardos over the weekend? We'll talk to Dave at 6:30 about them, more specifically to what they are up against tonight. And by the way, Justin Champagnie is going to be on the show tomorrow. Champagnie agreeing over the weekend to a 4-year, $10 million deal. According to ESPN on the terms, the Wizards officially announced the 4-year deal today. He's having a career year. And the old Zardos, after losing to the Trailblazers on Friday night, beat the Hornets. And, Anthony, they have swept the Hornets this year.
We swept them?
I do believe they have swept the Charlotte Hornets.
Good. I mean, they are the second worst team, so I guess it sort of kind of makes sense, but it's still shocking that we swept them.
I guess it's just a good matchup.
Yeah.
Chris Middleton continues to just be a professional athlete. 17 points, 5 and 9 shooting, nice and efficient, 6 assists. Did have 4 turnovers in that win over Charlotte. But defensively, like, Wizards are actually playing some good defense as of late. Like, not every night, of course. I mean, look, they're still them. They're young. And when I say they're still them, like, 1, they're not really trying to win games in large amounts. 2, they're a young team, and you're going to have nights that go sideways. But, like, they gave up 100 to the Hornets. They gave up 129 to Portland. Shaedon Sharpe, by the way, in that game. Oh, my God. That dunk that he had. Whew, oh, my. Moment of silence. Wow. Against the Nets, they gave up 99. It was a 104-101 game against Milwaukee. So, like, in the last, when was this Milwaukee game? This was on, oh, come on, give me a date. Game information.
I was there, too.
February 21st.
Yep.
So, since basically the All-Star break, since they came back, they've almost every other night been, like, pretty good defensively. So, that's an exciting thing, I think, for this team moving forward. And, obviously, getting Marcus Smart in there is kind of helpful on that front. College hoops over the weekend, Anthony. What caught your eye in the college basketball world over the weekend? Anything in particular jump out at you?
The Alabama versus Tennessee game was crazy. Crazy, down to the wire. I don't know the kid's name from Tennessee, but all I know is like 4 seconds on the clock. He gets the inbound, takes like 3 dribbles, pulls up maybe a step or 2 in front of half court. Cash. They win in a thriller.
We shouldn't talk too much about buzzer beaters, though, the way things went for Maryland last week.
I know that one didn't hurt. You know, their last 3 losses have been like that.
I know.
Which is insane. Like, God
Not
dang.
good.
Can't
Gotta
catch a break.
Close a game. Turtles, come on.
And then the USC-UCLA game. I didn't get to watch it, but I did see USC swept the UCLA women. which was crazy.
Yeah, on the men's side, you also had where did it go? Auburn pretty much just crushes Kentucky. Auburn, Rollins, number 1 team in the country, 94-78 on Saturday. Sunday on the men's side, Michigan State toughs it out against Wisconsin, 71-62. That was an 8 versus 11 matchup. And then Michigan goes down hard by 20, 93-73 at home by Illinois. Good gracious. This tournament should actually be a lot of fun this year. On the women's side, like you said, the big one of the weekend was that USC beat UCLA. UCLA was the last undefeated, if I'm remembering correctly, on the season.
Yep.
And now USC's beaten them twice. USC up to number 2 in the coaches poll today. Juju Watkins, 30 points, 3 blocks. She is, I mean, on top of what she does offensively, we're like, she's one of these players, you know, like certain guys you watch in the NBA and certain players you watch in the W, where you're like, that wasn't a great shot, but it went in all the time.
Yep.
They're just, it's not a bad shot maker. It's just like, what's a good shot to them is such a wider bucket, no pun intended, than everybody else on the floor. That's Juju.
Yeah.
And then she's 6 feet tall and super athletic and super long, and she's blocking people left and right.
Yeah.
She's a menace.
I'm excited for what is to come. But to your point, yeah, I think she does take a lot of, in our eyes, bad shots. But it's sort of kind of like Carmelo Anthony. I don't think he took a lot of good shots. Like, there wasn't one shot that he's seen that he didn't like for real. So I think that's more so like where she, you know, gets her, like, confidence from. Like, she's getting to her spots. She's making them. You can't really complain.
She doesn't see, you know, Kyrie once was quoted as basically saying, I don't see defenders, I see cones. Because he practices moves as if there's defenders in front of him with cones of like, I got to get to this spot. And I feel like Juju's one of those players for sure. On Sunday, a lot of action around the women's college game. Notre Dame continues to roll. They smack Louisville 72-59. Texas, number 1 team in the country right now, 72-46. And South Carolina, they beat Kentucky 78-66, which means that both teams finish 15-1 in the SEC, which means, Anthony, they're tied, which means, you know how we decide a winner in terms of the SEC and the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament?
A coin flip.
A coin flip. A coin flip that went South Carolina's way.
Yeah.
Which I think is justice. Here's why.
Yeah, tell me why.
I think a coin flip is stupid. And I have a better idea that at first you're going to think sounds crazy. I think you should base it off last year's record.
Huh?
Why should, like, I realize, especially in college, things are year to year, right? Year ends, you crown a champion. It means absolutely nothing for you in the next year, outside of, I guess, the polls, right? But in terms of, like, your conference, it means you get to hang a banner and you get a trophy. Why can't we make it mean more? Why can't, if you run out of tiebreakers somewhere before coin flip, and if you want to do point differential in the conference, or you want to come up with something else that's in season, that's fine. But try convincing me that a coin flip makes more sense than where the 2 teams finished in the conference last year. And I realize this one would have been a little complicated because Texas wasn't actually in the SEC last year.
Oh.
But, like, South Carolina was the reigning champion. Nobody knocked him off. Why did this come down to a coin flip? At first you think it's a bad idea, but try telling me that makes less sense than a coin flip.
Yeah. That's tough then. I don't know. But my thing also is, though, Craig, since it's these 2 teams and they both have the same record, why not just do head-to-head?
Didn't they split?
Or
is each of their one loss, is South Carolina's one loss to Texas and Texas lost to somebody else? I thought they split.
Oh, I didn't
because
know
if it is, if they did play once, then head-to-head should be it. Yeah. That should always be the number 1 tiebreaker. You played, who won? Okay, cool. You can't do overall record because schedules aren't even, right? You want teams to take it easy in the non-conference. You want good games, right? So why not just use, like, if you want to do point differential, again, that's fine. If you want to do home record or away record, like if one team lost at home, like at 15-1 and your one loss came at home, the other ones came on the road, sure, I can make an argument for that. But I think that making the continuity of the program a factor is definitively more sensical than a coin flip. That's all I'm saying. A coin flip, why has it got to be a coin flip? Why can't we play rock, paper, scissors? Each team captain or each coach. What if we got Don out there playing rock, paper, scissors?
Or the coaches playing one-on-one?
Sure. Makes more sense than a coin flip. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and to your point, they did split, yeah.
Anything else that anything else that happened this weekend that we want to...
Oh, the last thing, Craig, and you probably didn't watch it, but Gervonta Tank Davis fought Lamar.
Oh, yeah.
There's been a lot of arguing on Twitter about, DC's own Lamont Roach getting robbed in that fight. And I'm not going to lie, Craig, a lot of the people on Twitter, they have points. There are points to be made for why Lamont Roach really should have won, but it ultimately ended up ending in a draw. And I'm excited for a rematch. I hope it's sooner rather than later. That is what I will say. Good Saturday night of boxing, though.
One that was taken in person by Deebo Samuel.
Yes, he was there.
He was there. Jaden, by the way, was at the USC-UCLA game and then went to the Lakers game that night as well. So nice little hoops night in L.A. For Jaden Daniels. That game, by the way, was sold out. One of my friends tried to go, and I was like, oh, that's sick. You're in line. And she's like, no, it's not sick. It's sold out. Like, oh, okay. All right, then. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. That's your Weekend in Review, brought to you by...
Nobody, Craig.
Coming up next, we were going to go around the NFL. Tons of news over the weekend. We'll get to everything non-Deebo, and then we'll take a few more of your calls on Deebo at 6:15 before Dave Johnson joins us at 6:30. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Hey, everybody on the internet. Hey, everybody listening out there in the cars. Hey, everybody listening to this final hour on the free Odyssey app. It's time for us to go around the NFL, Anthony. We got a couple of moves that have been made, and we got a couple of moves that we're waiting on. That's actually where we are going to start with Sam Darnold, who the Vikings are potentially going to franchise tag. That would give them control of Darnold for this season. Ultimately, they could pay him whatever that fully guaranteed amount of money is. It would not be like a crazy quarterback number. It would be also not a long-term commitment. But what it would really do is control the market, where if another team wanted to come get him and then sign him to a deal, they could potentially get compensation in return. If I am the Vikings, Anthony, and I know I'm going to get something in return, I might do that. But what I don't want is Sam Darnold back on the tag number. And thus, I probably, unless I know that I am going to get multiple offers and have a market, and someone's going to be willing to give something up, and Sam Darnold's going to be willing to do whatever with that new team, buddy, I am not messing around with that. When you drafted J.J. McCarthy last year, no matter what you think of McCarthy, because I don't want people to be like, hey, didn't you like McCarthy? I did. I did like McCarthy in the draft, and I think he'll be a great fit with Kevin. But they obviously thought that too. They traded up to take him. You can't abandon that plan 1 year later because you walked the right side of the Sam Darnold tightrope for most of the year, and then he reminded you that it was a tightrope at the end. Frankly, even if he hadn't done that at the end, if he wins you a Super Bowl, fine. If he gets you to the Super Bowl, fine. But I think you have to stick with the rookie quarterback plan, and paying Sam Darnold a bunch of money eats into the advantage that you have for having a rookie quarterback. And if you messed up the quarterback pick, well, that was going to haunt you pretty much no matter what. You better find out sooner rather than later. That's where I'm at on Darnold.
Nah, I agree with you, Craig. I definitely think they should stick with the plan, go with JJ. And even when I look at Sam Darnold, and I admire everything he did last year because he definitely did turn the team up last year. But at the same token, I don't think this is a guy that elevates the players around him. They have a lot of talent there in Minnesota. And I'm not saying like he didn't do,
He played the best he's ever played in his whole career. And
good.
I'm hoping that Sam Darnold has a Baker Mayfield-like turnaround. I wish Sam Darnold nothing but the best. But frankly, it sucks for Sam Darnold because probably the best thing for him would be to stay with Kevin O'Connell and certainly staying with Justin Jefferson. But if I go to PFF and I go to passing grades, QB, turnover-worthy plays, you know who led the NFL in turnover-worthy plays last year?
Don't tell me Sam Darnold.
It was Sam Darnold.
Good
According
gracious.
to PFF's metric, it was 27 turnover-worthy plays, turnover-worthy throws that Sam Darnold had. That was those guys don't count, of guys who played. Let me see if I can throw a filter in here. Minimum dropbacks of there. Yeah, of guys who started 18 games. He and Matt Stafford not only had the highest number, but the highest percentage. If you drop that off to 50%, Cousins was the only one of regular starters that had a worse season in terms of turnover-worthy plays. Now, high risk, high reward. His average depth of target was 9.3. That's one of the best in the league. In fact, it was tied with Lamar Jackson for best in the league in terms of pushing the ball down the field. So he's just a high risk, high reward guy. But I think in that offense, with the amount of playmakers they have, a guy with a little less variance and a little more guarantee of getting Justin Jefferson the football, that's probably what they want. And not to mention value. At what cost? I would just not mess around with that if I was the Vikings.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Eagles have cut Darius Slay. This is super interesting because he played really well. Now, they have their CB1 of the future in Kenyon Mitchell. They have their nickel of the future in Cooper DeJean. They got to find another dude outside. They have been exceptional at finding dudes. But Darius Slay out there, and he's someone that could wind up on another NFC team. Could he go back to the Lions where he started his career? Could he go to Green Bay? Could he go to one of those teams? I don't know necessarily that he's the guy that you're looking at if you're Washington, depending on the price. If he's cheap, hell yeah, I want Darius Slay. physical, probably has an axe to grind, knows those Philly guys real well. But if he's not going to be super cheap, I don't think that you spend more money considering you're paying Marshawn Lattimore already at that position.
Yeah, I wouldn't spend any money. He's getting older. He did play well last year, but when you got that defensive line in front of you, and not to say, it's the easiest thing to do, but I think it makes your job a little bit easier when you don't have to, worry about, when the ball's coming out so quickly.
A couple other names to watch on the franchise tag market / on the just got released market. On the just got released market, Alex Kappa, guard from the Cincinnati Bengals. He's 30 years old, but he hasn't missed a game in 2 years. Obviously, the Bengals' offensive line has not been amazing, but he's a solid player. And I think he's the kind of veteran that you have to look at if you're watching it. Now, I haven't watched him enough on tape. I don't know exactly where his level is. In fact, I'll pull up his PFF grade real quick, which is a data point. But I think that overall, for an upgrade on the offensive line, you could probably do worse than that. So I think he's a name that's probably worth watching.
I mean, when we have offensive line needs, I think it's important to, do our due diligence in all those guys that are available. Not to say we have to sign all of them, but still give them a chance.
He didn't have a great year, to say the least. His pass block grade on the season was pretty horrendous after the first 4 weeks. It was a 39.7. His run block grade was a 54.9, so not great. He had a game that was a 9.6, another game for a pass block grade, another game that was a 10.1.
How do you do it against the Commanders?
Against Washington, actually one of his better games of the year. He had a 60 overall grade, 69.9 pass block, 54.2 run block. It was awesome the next week against Carolina, when Carolina was poop.
Yeah.
So, look, he's a vet. He's not great. I actually don't know how much better he is than a guy like Nick Allegretti. But another option to certainly the 30-year-olds look at. Alex Kappa. Osi Odigizua is a name that you might know. Cowboys defensive tackle. Apparently they're going to tag him if they can't get a long-term deal. So that's someone that I wondered if Dan Quinn would make a run at. He's off the market. So that sucks.
Yeah, that does.
And then, last but not least, perhaps the biggest one of the day, save the best for last, T. Higgins. Tagged for the second straight year. At $26.2 million, which I believe is the number. It's 26. I think the .2 is right as well.
Yeah. Yep. Right.
That's a no-brainer for Cincinnati. As long as they can then get a deal done with Jamar Chase and hopefully get this deal done long-term. But I think T on the open market is going to cost you more than 26.2. So why wouldn't you just pay the 26.2 and keep your leverage?
Yeah, I think that's a smart route to go as well, because they were saying he's going to try to command over 30. So that's a lot of money. So sign him now, or franchise him now, and then see if you can get everything else done with Jamar, Trey Hendrickson, and then circle back.
Well, that's the fun one, right? Is 26.2. It's one thing if you're paying him that AAV and you can get a low cap hit in year one type of thing. That gives you a little more wiggle room for Hendrickson. I wonder what happens with Hendrickson now. Can they figure out a deal with him, or do they just ignore his trade request again and say, hey, dude, you're playing here again? Nobody ignores a trade request like the Cincinnati Bengals. But the other interesting thing about T is T and Jamar share an agent. That was a change during last season. I think I heard that on the Athletic Football Show. Their Bengals reporter was they realized, or T kind of realized, man, my current agent, it's not working. The Bengals, we can't get the deal done. But if I go to where Jamar's at, then we can kind of be a package deal. And Jamar and T that's how they're thick as thieves.
Yeah.
And Joe is right in there with them.
Yeah,
I don't know if he shares the same agent, but they want T there. Jamar and Joe want T there. And so the thing is if you mess with T, you're messing with Jamar. And I don't know if you've been on Instagram today, Anthony, but Jamar kind of gave a, what? He posted a meme tagging T huh? So I wonder if that's coming from Jamar's agent and conversations the three of them have had, or is that just Jamar being huh? And they're actually, hey, Jamar, chill. It's cool. We're working on a deal. This is something that the Bengals are just doing in the meantime. But it's definitely something to watch. Jamar Chase, he's got a year remaining, so it's not like he's about to become a free agent or anything. But they should have extended him last year, if not 2 years ago. And all it's done is get more expensive as Jamar Chase went out and won the Triple Crown. And now it's apparently a package deal with T. Higgins, so we'll see if the Bengals can land that. So when we get back, a couple more thoughts on Deebo Samuel to the Commanders. We've been talking about it all day. Take a couple of calls, 301-230-0980. Wizards talk at 6:30 with Dave. But first, the latest in the world of women's sports, presented to you by Wawa. Chicken how you want it at Wawa with customizable, crispy, and roasted chicken sandwiches. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Let's take a call real quick at 301-230-0980 on Deebo Samuel, who the Commanders have acquired or will officially acquire coming up at the start of the league year on March 12th from the San Francisco 49ers. Let's go to Darren. Darren, thanks for calling. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Craig, how you doing this evening?
Doing well, Darren. Thanks for calling.
I'm sure you are. Look, on Deebo, I think this moves the needle. Just for me, it moves the needle because when I look at his numbers last year, as opposed to De'Ami Brown, it's doubled in all categories. So it definitely moves the needle for me. Yards after catch, receptions, touchdowns, everything, which was few, little to none, but still, he doubles everything in production. Then he has that attitude. I think Dan Quinn, they want that attitude, that dog. They like that dog in him. And I believe they're going to bring in a receiver that they're going to hope from out of the draft, that they're going to hope that can be maybe not equivalent, but just comparable to Terry McLaurin, because we got to build for the future. So we need somebody that's at least that's comparable to Terry McLaurin or somebody moving forward. I think they get these old veterans with that dog in them to teach these young bucks that dog mentality. I think he's a good building block. I trust Adam Peters. He knows this guy. They're going to whip him in shape. You know, I got trust in this medical staff, how they dealt with the veterans and all the injuries this year. Now that I think about it, I mean, I'm really impressed with this medical staff. I mean, it's really a well-oiled machine. They brought in the Swiss Army knife, which Deebo is the way I see him. I mean, he'll dog a defender, and he plays on offense. He'll make you don't want to get near him.
Yeah.
Man, he's a mean motor scooter. So I like to sign it. And just one quick stat I'm gonna tell you real quick.
All right,
that
hit me.
Found on AI. Just real quick, Craig.
Okay.
And okay, Samuels reached a top speed of 20.9 miles per hour while receiving a 76-yard touchdown in October 24. This was his fastest speed since 2019. However, it was the third most fastest in the NFL last season. Now, that's just food for thought. I'll take it off the air.
All right, Darren, thanks for the call. And you know, Anthony, what Darren might say about that Deebo stat at the end. That's a fast motor scooter.
Yes, sir. Have you heard that before?
I have not. Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Is that?
It is a thing. The motor scooters, man.
I'm kind of upset, honestly. Why have the rest of y'all been holding out on me?
I mean, it's a thing. I mean, maybe it's just not as popular. He's also, I think he's a little bit older.
I was gonna say, this feels like something that perhaps is older and like your pops and his friends might use.
Yeah, they're using that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's funny, man.
I kind of want to call Yates on the air right now.
you want to hit him with it?
I feel like Yates is too young, but Yates knows a bunch of older brothers that use that.
Nah, he will get it. He would know what you're saying.
But I'm like, Clinton's dad's a little bit older. What is Clinton's dad saying it, or is it slightly? Is it somewhere in between?
Probably his dad. I mean, I don't know. My grandparents, they were 65, between 65 and 70. So I think that age bracket right there, them baby boomers.
So Clinton's pops is probably might be saying something about a motor scooter.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, you learned something new today, Craig.
I did.
I hope you use it. I hope you use it too.
Am I allowed?
Yeah, you can use it.
All right.
Boy, fastest motor scooter.
That's a fast. Well, he didn't say fast motor scooter. He said that's a bad motor scooter. He was using motor scooter as a not a euphemism, as a replacement, as a substitute for something else that he couldn't say the way he said it. But then that's a fast motor scooter. Tell you what Deebo Samuel is. Deebo Samuel is. By the way, I'm gonna just say this out there now for everybody. ladies and gentlemen of the Washington, D.C. Greater Metropolitan area, who are now going to become fans of Deebo Samuel. His last name is Samuel, not Samuels. This is actually, and this may be news to some of you, the same as Curtis Samuel, who was also Curtis Samuel, not Curtis Samuels. This is different than some of the other players that have played in the NFL whose last names were Samuels, like Chris Samuels.
I was just thinking about him.
His name, the receiver that the Washington Commanders have just acquired, his name is Deebo Samuel, singular. And he is a fast motor scooter.
Yes.
Dave Johnson is next. Feels like we haven't done this in way too long. It's a Game Day Dave here on the Hoffman Show. Been traveling, been out. Wizards had the All-Star break. Things have been all over the place. But the world is back on its axis, at least in terms of the basketball world. Dave Johnson joining us from Miami ahead of Heat and Wizards tonight. 7 o'clock pregame here on the Team 980 for 7:15 tip. I think, do I have that right, Dave, or is it 7:15, 7:30 tonight?
It's 7:30, but we'll be on Team 980 at 7:15. So I think
there we go.
You said it exactly right. That's when our cavalcade of greatness begins, or at least the best I could do this afternoon, full side.
Yeah, no, I mean, cavalcade of greatness is now the expectation you've put on yourself. You did that to you, Dave, but that's between you and you. You can figure that out roughly around 7:15. The Wizards' defense, as of late, it has been much maligned this year, and frankly, for good reason. It's a young team that has struggled because playing defense in the NBA is hard. But the last couple of weeks, like kind of post All-Star break, they've had some really nice performances on that end of the floor. What has gone well for them? How much of this is personnel motivated, and how much of this is some of these young guys starting to really figure out what it takes to get stops in this league?
Well, it's quite frankly, this team, and this is what you hoped for back in September, October, that, we hit March now. And is this team growing? Is it getting better? Are the key players on this team, these key young players, developing? Is it Kershawn George, who had, 3 steals the other day? As Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart talked about, wait a minute, we like the way he plays defense, but Draymond Green told us that back in December. So the point is, these players have the athleticism and have the intelligence. That's what it comes down to. That's why, if you're a Wizards fan, you're excited that Bub Carrington is playing the most minutes of any rookie, 29 a game. But they're all right around, that neighborhood. And so, you're seeing these teams for a second, third, or fourth time if it's an Eastern Conference team. And so you're learning, and you remember, okay, what didn't I do the first time around? And that's what you want to see, and that's what we're seeing with this Wizards team. It's in the right way. It's no secret that look, this team has the capability to share the ball like they did Saturday in Charlotte, which odd stat. They swept the season series 4 games against the Charlotte Hornets, and I say odd stat because I don't care what kind of season you're having, what kind of season the other team is having. To beat a team 4 times is not that easy. But the Wizards are 6-1 when they have 30 or more assists. It just all the metrics are, and when you talk to scouts around the league and people from other teams, they're saying, "Wow, you've got quite a collection of young players." And today. Again, it's about player development. You draft, yes. You trade, yes. But now Justin Champagnie signs a contract, and it's not a gift. It's a multi-year contract because we've seen enough that he is, with his toughness, with the way he rebounds. And by the way, part of defense is rebounding. He's a 6'5" guy that, the other night, 10 points, 8 rebounds. So what you're encouraged by is that here's a guy who was in the Summer League, 2-way, G League, all these steps where he could have felt, oh, God, I'm not getting anywhere. And now he's got a multi-year contract with the Wizards.
He does, and he's got an appearance on the Hoffman show tomorrow. So when you guys get back, but you know what I'm saying, Craig. It's as we're in this business, this broadcasting business. I don't know about you, but there are times when I thought, I don't know if I'm going to make over $250 a week. And there are times I thought, my friends have sales jobs or this, and you almost give up. And for sure, Justin Champagnie, he didn't give up. Okay, you're back in the G League now. You're back up here. You're back. That takes a lot of mental fortitude. It takes a ton, and that's why I'm genuinely excited to talk to Justin about his journey tomorrow on the show, because the story, like, guys don't do this a whole lot. There are enough examples that you have a little bit of inspiration, but there are certainly not a ton. And especially, I think the thing that's special about Justin, Dave, is his size. Like, the way he plays is not a thing that you do at his size. And so the ability to not only overcome the odds of being a G League guy and getting a multi-year deal, but doing it in such an unorthodox combination of build and play style, like, it is a tremendous testament to who he is as a person that he's been able to pull this off.
And also his mother, because he says it was his mother that told him all throughout his young days, rebound. That's all. She wanted him to, you got to rebound. And she still gets on him about that. And again, look at his size and look at the rebounding numbers he puts up per minute, and it's off the charts. So credit to mom.
Always credit to mom. Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show. And again, Champagnie tomorrow, 4:15 is our scheduled time. That might move around, but planning on Justin at 4:15 tomorrow here on the Team 980. in terms of the new guys that have come in, Marcus Smart, Chris Middleton, what impact have you seen them have, not only within the games, but being around the team and practice and what they've brought to this team just over a month after they were acquired, or just around a month since they were acquired?
Yeah, and what's great is they love being here, and they love giving back and teaching these young guys. And what I say, part of that is the dynamic of the players that we've drafted, quite frankly. And so Marcus Smart or Chris Middleton says, you know what, I'm going to give my time to these guys because I can see, what's coming in the future. I can see the kind of pressure Koulibaly's under every night and how he accepts it, guarding the best opposing player more often than not. Talk about, again, Marcus Smart, what he accomplishes at his size. He is, we talk about Champagny being a game maker, a game changer. Smart was that way. He was always a thorn in the Wizards' side back in the Celtics playoff, days, that great series back in 2017. So, he's a guy that gets in and he looks like he had nuts and bolts for breakfast, and he's ready to play defense. Chris Middleton was in the G League. So, again, all the success he's had, it's again, part of the development equation. We don't know if either we'll be here beyond this next 6 weeks, but the important thing is you're on a journey. And look, we're on a journey. It's not just a cliche, but we told you, and we all agreed before the start of the season, this was not a team that was going to win a lot of games. But, is it making decisions to improve? And don't just go out and get veterans for the sake of, we got to make a trade and we got to get somebody. Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart are exactly the type of players that are helping these young players and that will help this organization because they are players that, no matter how long they're with the organization, will make a difference. Paul Pierce was just for the Wizards for one season, but he had a lasting impact in terms of talking to players 2 or 3 years after the fact, and they still remember him being the first at the gym. And so this is the other part of the story. As we hit March, you might be saying, well, they got one eye on April 13th, and when we're in Miami again, by the way, for the final game, and it's vacation time. These young guys are busting at the seams to try to finish their best because they want to go into the offseason saying, you know what, I got the most rookie season, or in below Koulibaly's case, the second season, because you want the rebuild to bear fruit sooner than later.
No doubt, and they want to be in a position to get as many minutes as they can next year and all those things, position themselves well heading into jump season, as Will Dawkins calls it. Last thing for Dave Johnson here, of course, play-by-play announcer for the Wizards. Dave, how many years you been doing this?
This is my 28th, I'm proud to say.
28th year. In your 28 years of calling NBA basketball, how many dunks have you seen that were better than the one? Unfortunately, it was on the Wizards, but the one that Shaedon Sharpe had the other night in Portland.
Well, I just listened back and I was glad that I called it because, it sounds like I'm patting myself on the back. What I'm saying is things like that, as you can appreciate as a broadcaster, everybody out there listening, can happen so fast.
Yes.
That, well, wait a minute, did I call it? And look, as that was happening in real time, did not expect it. And
no,
so
it was
that
such a quick changeover, such a quick transition. Like, good on you for calling it. I probably would have been like, and oh my God, and that's all I would have said. Then I just would have sat there with my hands,
and believe me, I've had those kind of moments, but fortunately or unfortunately, that was a NBA slam dunk all-star type of dunk. It just happened to be in a real game.
Well, good on you for calling it. That was it. I remember seeing, you get those alerts from like ESPN or Bleacher Report or The Athletic or whatever, and it's like must-see dunk, and you click on half of them, and you're like, I actually didn't have to see that. Like, that was cool, but that wasn't anything. That was a must-see dunk. That one was crazy. Tough loss for the Wizards that night, but they've won 2 of their last 3. They're in Miami tonight. Dave getting ready for pregame here just over 30 minutes from now, 7:15, and then tip-off at 7:30. Dave, enjoy the nice weather. It's gotten cold again in D.C. Try to bring some sunshine back, eh?
Well, best. I'll do my best.
All right. Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show. Thank you, sir. Talk to you later in the week. And again, Justin Champagnie, fresh off his 4-year, $10 million extension, will join us. He will not give me or you or anybody else a dollar, but he will join us on the radio tomorrow, coming up at 4:15. When we get back, we wrap up the show with real things real people said into real microphones. It's I guess it's March. We're really getting a Nats season.
Yes, we are, Craig. Well, also, we finally got out of that MASN dispute. That's also why I played it.
Oh, if you want more on that, you can go back to 5:30 today. Chelsea Janes joined the show. Of course, you can read her work on the MASN Nats years-long debacle finally being over at WashingtonPost.com/sports. Great guest today. Also a great spot from our guy, Nick Wagner, ESPN.com. I haven't said this all day. The John Keim of San Francisco.
He's been there that long?
I mean, he's not. No. Okay.
Right.
I just mean like he's the 49ers reporter.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
Is there anybody? The dude in Denver, Tim Legwald, I believe is his name, has been covering the NFL, but he was with the Steelers, covered the Steelers for a long time, and now he covers the Broncos. Are there anybody else in ESPN's reporter pool
that's been with like one franchise
for that long?
That's some good trivia right there.
That is. I mean, Nick's been there for like a decade, but like that's not. Kai's been there for 3.
Yeah.
I feel like Rich Samini has covered the Jets for a long time. They've gone through a couple of Giants guys. No, she's younger. I'm like literally going up and down the Eastern Seaboard. This probably isn't great radio. Adam Teicher, I think, with the Chiefs has been there for a long time. There has got to be something better that my brain could be used for than like knowing ESPN's entire NFL Nation lineup off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're doing a lot better than me, Craig.
Archer's been in Dallas forever. Todd Archer might be a good answer.
Okay. And what about Buccaneers? What is her name?
Jenna Lane.
Jenna Lane.
I don't know. Jenna's
she's younger than John.
I was going to say, I don't know, all due respect to Cakes, I don't know if she's old enough to be there as long as, I mean, certainly not old enough. I don't think Jenna was in being a professional in the early 1990s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably enough thinking on that topic for now.
Tomorrow.
We'll come back with a full report. There's some teams that haven't been around as long in their markets as Keim is.
Nah, for real.
Raiders moving around a bunch. Did the Raiders move twice in Keim's time covering Washington? Did they go L.A. to Oakland to Vegas? I don't remember when they moved out of L.A.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, the point is, Nick Wagner was fantastic. Tomorrow on the show, Justin Champagny, 4:15. Also, we've been sitting on one final piece of content from Indy. We did a reporter roundtable. Second straight year we did it. And it was Brooke Pryor, speaking of ESPN's NFL Nation, John's colleague in Pittsburgh, who's also, of course, national, and you see her on Get Up and their TV stuff. And our guy, Dan Pizzuta. And we talked for like 40 minutes on 3 different topics, but one of them was why we think, and this was Dan's topic, why trades are going to become more prominent in the NFL. Well, that was like last Wednesday that we had that conversation, and then the Deebo trade happens over the weekend, and there's probably more coming, so it feels like that's the part of the conversation we should play for you. The full thing will be in our podcast feed / on-demand channels on YouTube, etc. If you missed any part of the show today, you can check it out there. We'll see what else comes down the pike tomorrow. 4 o'clock is the franchise tag deadline, so we'll probably have some more stuff on that. But for now,
real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
All right. Quickly becoming a Real Things Hall of Famer is Xavier Legette, the wide receiver from the Carolina Panthers, who is countrier than country could be. And of all the people who on the Carolina Panthers wind up being the translator for him, it's none other than Adam Thielen from Lake Minnetonka, Minnesota.
In receiver meetings, no one knows what he's saying except for me. So Coach Moore will literally ask him a question, Xavier will respond, and then Coach will immediately look to me like, what did he say? And I have to translate, and then everyone's like, why are you the one who's translating? It doesn't make any sense. But for some reason, I just understand what he's saying.
You call out a play.
Yeah.
In practice, he comes to you and he starts talking to you. Hey,
I've gotten better too. Yesterday I seen him, and it was like a little loud where we were at, and it was dark. Yeah. So I'm like, All right, bro, I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, I can't, like, we can't have a conversation.
That second one, Bryce Young, by the way. So Bryce Young and Xavier Leggett go and have a conversation, Anthony. And Bryce is just like, nah, man, it's too, I can't read your lips. It's too dark in here and it's too loud. So if I can't read your lips and I can't really hear you, we can't talk right now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, Craig. Xavier Leggett, the more and more I think about it, have you seen The Water Boy?
Yeah.
He sort of kind of gives me Farmer Fran, the guy that, is just does a lot of talking. Nobody really understands what he's talking about, but they're like, yeah. Sort of kind of. He gives me those vibes a little bit.
I'm sure that there are people that is the case, where they're just like, yeah, man. Next thing you know, he's coming up. Hey, you want to get this raccoon that I made for you? And they're like, wait, what?
The raccoon.
The raccoon. Time comes for us all. For De'Aaron Fox, it's coming faster than he wants. Now suddenly a veteran on a very young San Antonio team.
Being out there and just trying to be able to lead by example and also lead with my voice with such a young group of guys. But it's cool. They make you feel like you're a little older. Like we're playing Charlotte and Taj Gibson catches the ball and no one goes to contest his mid-range shot. And someone on the bench is like, these kids don't know who Taj Gibson is. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy because like some of them are really that young and like didn't watch him in his earlier years or throughout his prime. So it is funny.
Happens to us all. That's our show. We'll